Sharia courts are running wild in Britain, allowing a shadow Islamic justice system to flourish while crimes go unpunished or seemingly ignored. That is the story, or the latest story, and damning government figures show it. Last year alone, nearly 3,000 honour-related offences were recorded. Things like forced marriages, female genital mutilation, and even honour killings. But only 95 defendants were actually prosecuted. That is less than 3%. And the year before that, well, 2,755 offences, just 80 prosecutions though. There are believed to be up to 85 Sharia councils operating across Britain, handling divorces, marriages, even pressuring women to reconcile with abusive husbands or accept polygamy. It's why the UK is often dubbed the Sharia capital of Europe. This is a parallel system that undermines British law, discourages victims from coming forward to real police, and lets predators hide behind cultural sensitivity. Well, imams have been known to facilitate underage unions, cousin marriages, or even tell women their place is in submission. So where is the outrage from the progressive left? Forced marriages tell the same story. Between 2020 and 2025, 766 were reported to police, but only 118 prosecutions happened. What about female genital mutilation? It's been illegal for nearly 40 years, yet only 3 convictions ever, one involving a toddler. The Metropolitan Police alone logged over 1,000 FGM reports in recent years. So again, where are the prosecutions? It is, in my opinion, very clear that our authorities are pandering to Islamic communities. In my opinion, authorities are also turning the same blind eye to crimes in these communities as they have been charged with over their handling of the rape gangs. And if you want further evidence, look at the findings from a select committee report looking into the Maccabi Tel Aviv issue that, of course, arose not that long ago. The paper, which was written by a cross-section of 11 MPs, also found that political pressure from county councillors in Birmingham may have influenced the police's exceptional decision to ban Israelis from the match. What does that tell you? This has got to stop, one way or another. There can only be one law in this land, British law. No parallel courts, no more blind eyes turned away from the abuse, just in the name of multiculturalism. No more women and girls abused on the altar of diversity. This is the United Kingdom, not an Islamic republic. These Sharia courts must be banned.
Hello, I'm Bev Turner. Now, it can feel like the money in our bank accounts at the moment does not keep up with the cost of living, and maybe there's a solution. I'm here today with the CEO of TallyMoney, Cameron Parry. Cameron, what is TallyMoney?
Well, Bev, with TallyMoney, you get a current account and a debit card, but instead of pounds, you use milligrams of gold as your everyday money.
So why gold?
Gold traditionally is a great store of value. It has, on average, gone up at over 11% per annum for the last 25 years against the pound. It's tripled in value in the last decade. And in the last 2 years alone, it's increased by 50% against the pound. Banks' savings products just can't compete with that level of growth.
But this isn't just about gold. This is about a currency that you guys have created at TallyMoney. Explain it to me as though I'm an idiot.
So, look, people need to be able to hold their earnings and build their savings in a money that retains its value and remains in their legal control and remains theirs to access, away from government control.
Great. You had me at not exposed to government control.
You should feel safe and happy with your money. You should have peace of mind the more money you see in your bank balance, and that's the type of thing we're trying to deliver, and give people choice in the type of money they get to use every day.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Cameron. Thank you.
Let's get the thoughts of my panel. Journalist and broadcaster Linda Jubilee's here, former Labour Minister Bill Ramelsback, and businessman and activist Adam Brooks is joining me too. Adam, I'll start with you. These statistics that have come out from the government, these new figures, are quite damning. There's so many cases, and it always seems to land on women and children, young girls, where prosecutions haven't come forward. Makes me very worried that the authorities are... I've got the same thing that I just said. There's a charge against them, perhaps, that they are turning a blind eye to this for the sake of community cohesion.
Look, the grooming gangs and raping gangs were allowed to continue in this country for many, many years because the authorities were scared of being labelled racist or different labels, maybe sacked for doing it. We had policemen involved, we had counsellors involved. So there was a serious problem in this country. But look, Sir Jim Ratcliffe was absolutely demonised for his comments about colonisation. Yet we've got Sharia courts, Islamic courts in this country. We've got, I think 30% of lamb slaughtered or sold in the UK is halal. We have got women walking around with their faces covered, even though the Quran doesn't tell them to do that. We have imported cultural differences, cousin marriages, honour killings, genital mutilation. There's a serious culture problem in this country, and it's never called out, because if you do, you're called racist. And that is why these things get bigger and bigger, because if the authorities are too scared to act, if they're more worried about their pension than actually dealing with something like this, then we've got a problem.
Linda.
And it's always women that suffer.
Yeah.
They are always the lowest possible priority. Now, as far as I'm concerned, over many hundreds of years, we have established a very adequate legal system. It's under-resourced, sure, but it's a very adequate framework. We've got the rule of law that presides over everything. We've got common law, we've got statute law. We have got every kind of proficient law in order to govern this country effectively. And we do not need, nor I suspect, in many quarters want, Sharia law. I mean, Sharia law is practised probably at its most severe extent in 5 countries, but many more practice certain fundamental parts of it, which we would find abhorrent. Now, you've mentioned first cousin marriage. That's a particular bête noire of mine. That actually, in my mind, should be outlawed. I've actually been with one woman, a lovely woman, married her first cousin, Afghan woman. She had 6 children, 2 of them very disabled, one child extremely disabled, fed via a nasal gastric tube into her stomach, who had to go to Great Ormond Street once a month, unlikely to ever make teenagehood. That's how bad that is. And yet, she persisted in having more children. Female genital mutilation, honour killings, all of these things affect women, and they don't just affect women in that community, because at some point that all bleeds out into the wider community, and that's what I fear. But I don't think Sharia law is necessary. I can't understand why there would be a need for it, when actually, if you want community cohesion, and many people say, well, Sharia law has many good things about it, it increases community cohesion, etc., etc. I've heard fairly famous celebrities say that. But actually, there are many ways of increasing community cohesion, and it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with Sharia law.
Bill, I'll come to you. Is there a charge here? When we look at what happened with Maccabi Tel Aviv, look at that, and there's the report now by the Select Committee has stated that they feel there was perhaps political pressure put on the police by communities in Birmingham, which will inevitably be made up of quite specific people who are exceptionally perhaps against Israel, right? This is seeping into authorities, which is going to blind them to doing the thing that actually they need to do, which is to treat everyone fairly.
I mean, the Maccabi decision was utterly wrong. There was clearly political lobbying to try to get the Israeli fans banned, and I very much welcome the fact that the Chief Constable has gone. But let's come back to the issue of Sharia law, and I'm instinctively a secularist. I'm uncomfortable when religion gets involved in legal matters. However, let's be clear, Sharia courts do not take precedence over the UK law. They are voluntary courts that advise within the Islamic community. They are no different in any way, shape or form to Beth Din Jewish courts and Christian conciliation courts. So people who say ban Sharia courts. Well, you're then going to have to ban a lot of other voluntary.
Good idea.
Religious...
we agree on
idea.
that. We agree on that.
Well, yeah, but let's be clear what we're doing. But let's separate the issue of Sharia courts from honour-based crimes, because I don't think Sharia courts have been driving honour-based crimes. Honour-based crimes are disgusting. You know, we're talking about cousin marriage, we're talking about forced marriage, we're talking about female genital mutilation. The problem is it's incredibly difficult to bring prosecutions because the perpetrators are within someone's family, and there's massive pressure to ostracise the victims that takes place. There's also a lack of police training to work on these cases, and there's not adequate garnering of data that can help drive the process.
Let me say one thing. Let me just say one thing very, very quickly. I've actually had to, because I did a women's empowerment project, I had to actually sit with a woman who was virtually being held prisoner, whose son had been taken away to other members of the wider family because she wasn't towing the line in her marriage as perceived. Now, she's probably that far away from a very serious violent crime. So honour killings do happen, and sometimes the Sharia court will sit and they will say she needs to start behaving a bit better. We've only just seen the authorities in Afghanistan say that it is absolutely OK to beat your wife.
I'll put this to you, Bill. I think we're in broad agreement that actually these things shouldn't exist in Britain. I actually believe that the panel is in relative agreement about this. You've been in government. This issue is getting worse and worse in Britain. We're seeing the numbers. They're not good. They're not good. They're not good for Britain. It's not good for a cohesive culture. I think we should ban all these religious courts. They have no place in a modern society. But do we need specialist officers who are going to tackle things like honour-based crime, that can get into these families, get into what's going on, who understands the issues?
Absolutely. Specialist officers with adequate training, so they understand what's going on, they understand the pressures. But look, I said I'm uncomfortable with religion playing a part in the law. But once you begin to say you're going to legislate to ban Christian conciliation processes, the Jewish Beth Din courts, Sharia courts, you start coming up against real problems. These are voluntary associations that people engage in because of their faith. I think it's incredibly difficult to legislate and prescribe to ban them.
OK, listen, a Crown Prosecution Service spokesman said this: rising prosecutions is a clear sign we're turning the tide on honour-based abuse. We are united with partners, including police, at every opportunity by scrutinising our work to improve how we build strong cases from the start, listening to victims' voices and understanding the barriers and support they need when reporting crimes against their own families. We are driving justice. Improvements in recent years will hopefully give more victims the confidence to report, knowing their abusers can and will be brought to justice. And on the findings of the report into banning of Maccabi Tel Aviv fans, a West Midlands police spokesperson said this: "We remain fully committed to learning from these events and have already made early efforts through a series of meetings with key local representatives to repair any damage caused by the loss of confidence that the public has in us."